Oh, Bensie's here. Oh, Tazoi. Okay, now we can start. Zog to Heilige Gemara. Amar Abasi, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Ushum Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. Abasi said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, in the name of Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. Shloisha Yenishem. There's three types of yayins as far as the Isurim involved. There's yayin nesach, which is takruvas avodah zarah. That's literally takruvas avodah zarah. A goy poured into avodah zarah. So that's going to be Asr Bano. It's Asr Bano and the Metama Tuma Chamura Bekazayis. We learned that how do we know that Yain Nesach is Asr? Because it says Yishtu Yenesicham, and it says a couple of blot ago we had right after the Mishnah that Yishtu Yenesicham is compared to the Zvachim. So it's just like a carbon of Avodah. The carbon of Avodah is called Zivchei Mesim, and the Mace is Asr Bano and Matam B'Kazayis, and we know that from Eglah Roof. So that's Yayin Nesach, straight Yayin Nesach. Now let's turn on to Daf Lamed Aleph of an Aleph. Stam Yayin, Stam Yainam, so it's not wine that they poured Avodah Zarah, it's just their wine that they touched. Asur Bano, that's also Asur Bano. And Rashi says, why? Mishum Gzeras Yayin Nesach. It's a Gzera, none of their wine is allowed because if they poured it Avodah Zarah, it would be Asur. So therefore, it's also Asur Bano, but that's Midrabanan. And Umetama Tumas Mashkin Bervius. It's not Tama like a mace, because Zayis, it's Tame Tumas Mashkin Bervius. And there's a Machlekes Rashi and Toisvis. If the Tumas Mashkin Bervius means it's like any other Mashkin, and if a sheretz touches it, then it's Tame. And that's what it's mashma from Rashi and Toisvis asks. So then why is this any different than any other mashka? Why is it any different than not stam yain, than anything? Every mashka has tumas mashka on it. Zok Toisvis in Rashi that the chiddush is that it's beravias. Just like every other mashka that become tummy, it's a revias. So too by yain stam. You might have thought since there's a davar chomer here to gzeral yain nesach, even less than the revias should be subject to tumas oichlin and tumas mashkin. Kamash malon that still be revias. Toisvis doesn't like this pshat. And Toisvis learned that they were misakin a tumah even if no sheret touched it. Just the fact that it's tam yayin will be tummy. And then the third level is hamafkid yeino eitzal oivet kachon. A yid has wine, and he gave it as a pekadon to watch to a goy. The halach is osher b'shtia. It's osher to drink. We're afraid maybe the goy touched it. Umuter ba'no, but it's muter ba'no. We're going to have to get clarity in what the concern is and why there would be a difference between the Isur Shtia and the Heterano. Zog the Heilige Gemara. Frag the Gemara about Tanan, we learned. What if you have pears that you already took from the kosher pears, and you give them as a vikatan to a goy? We're concerned that a goy will say, wow, these are beautiful pears. I have shvacher pears. I'm going to swap out, and now I'm going to take the Jews' beautiful pears, and now I'm going to give them my bad pears instead. Now, if that happens, now we need to be concerned that the pears are no good. The pears need a tikkun. Maybe they need a tikkun for Trumas and Meisers. So Zog to Gemara. Second.
Okay, fantastic. Okay.
So Zog to Gemara. There's a concern. So I was by Mafkid Yeno. Why do we say that it's Asher B'Shti and Mutar Ba'ano? This might be Stam Yayin, because if he swapped out his wine with your wine, then you have Stam Yayin. So it should be Asher Stai B'Shti and Stai Ba'ano. Zok to Gemara, you know what type of wine we're talking about? Like Karen Zobis. The guy gave you a special place in his house to keep it. And Rashi says it's even under lock and key. Either it's under lock and key, and you have the key, or you made a special simon. Fact Gemara, If it's a special simon, so then you know it was not tampered with. So so then why can't you drink this wine? It's not tampered. The Ha Rabbi Yochanan, I'm going to show you that if it's not tampered with, there's no concern. The Rabbi Yochanan Ikla Leparad, or Parvad, Rabbi Yochanan reached this city. This is the city where Bar Kappara used to live, but Bar Kappara at this point was not alive. Amar, when he came, he said, Klum Yesh Mishnas Bar Kappara. When we walk into a city, we want to know the pizza stores, we want to know the entertainment places. But the Talmidei Chacham, they walk into a city, oh, this Rav lived here? Let me hear a word about this Rav. Let me hear something from this Rav. I know Bar Kappara once lived here. Could someone tell me over a beautiful word from Bar Kappara? So Tanile Rav Tanchem the Min Parvat. So Rav Tanchem says, I will tell you over a beautiful memora from Bar Kappara. And this is the memora that he said over. If you give your yain to a guy to a bekadin, mutter b'shtiya, you're allowed to drink it. So you see clearly this must be in the case where there's a chaysim. It's surely not open because then it's mamish tam yain. So you see with a chaysim it's mutter b'shtiya. So how could you say that our halacha from a Avoda b'Meseira where it's asher b'shtiya and mutter b'ano is speaking where there's a chaysim? You see from Bar Kappara that if there's a proper chaysim, it would be mutter and gaten. Kari alei. So Rabbi Yochanan was so happy with this special halacha that he learned B'Shem Bar Kappara that he said Mokaim sheyipai la'etz sham yiu. Wherever the tree falls, that's where the tree remains. In other words, Bar Kappara died here, Bar Kappara is still here. Frank Gemara, sham yiu solkadaitach, Bar Kappara was not there. Elo sham yiu peiraisa. If a tree falls down, even though they took the tree away, you'll find its pears there on the floor. So too, even though Bar Kappara is no longer here, his pears, meaning what he produced, his Torah, is still around. But Al Kalpanim, we do have a kasha because Bar Kappara says that it's mutter and gantin. So in what case, under what circumstances would Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseir say it's asher b'shtiya? Amar Abzeir loy kasha harab Eliezer harabanan. In fact, whether or not it's mutter and gantin, like Bar Kappara says, or whether it's only mutter b'ano, is totally the machlekes tanoim. Rab Eliezer and the Rabbanon. The Tanya we learned, Echad alikeach, ve'echad asoicher bayis b'chatzerei shaloi v'tichavim. Say if you bought or say if you rented a room in the house or in the chotzer of a goy, umalu yayin, and you filled it up with wine, umafteach aychosim b'yad Yisrael, but the yid's holding on to the key or he has it sealed with some on him. Rabbi Eliezer matter even b'shtiya, which is parallel, consistent with what Bar Kappara said. B'shtiya, but not b'ana. So Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseir holds like the Chachamim, but Bar Kappara apostles like Rabbi Eliezer. Amar Rab Chia b'red, Rab Chia bar Nachmeni. Amar Rab Chia Amar Rav. V'amar lo Amar Rab Chia Amar Ziri. V'amar lo Amar Rab Chia Amar li Abba bar Chama. Hachi Amar Ziri, halacha k'Rabbi Eliezer. We pass like Rabbi Eliezer that it's mutter and gantin even b'shtiya. So a chaysim or a mafteach, even a single chaysim, the halacha is you can rely on that the guy didn't touch it and to be allowed to drink the wine. Rabbi Lozar. Now Rabbi Lozar the Amoira says, Hakoil mishtamer b'chaysim echad. Every type of food would be considered watched, even though it's by the goy, if there's only one seal. Chutz min hayayin, except for wine, she'ein mishtamer b'chaysim echad. It would not be mishtamer. Now, Rabbi Lozer here seems not to hold like Bar Kappara. Bar Kappara seemed to have said that you could drink the wine with the chaysim echad. So it must be going according to the Rabbanon. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, Afilu yayin mishtamer b'chaysim echad. Even wine is mishtamer b'chaysim echad. But v'loi pligi, it's not a machlokes between Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Lozer. Rabbi Lozer is explaining the shita of the Rabbanon, and Rabbi Yochanan is explaining the shita of Rabbi Eliezer that even with one chaysim yayin is mishtamer. V'loi pligi, ha'kar Rabbi Eliezer, which is Rabbi Yochanan, ha'kar Rabbanon, which is Rabbi Lozer. Ikadamri, there was another shot in the machlokes, and you could say Omer Rabbi Lozer, Hakoil Mishtamer Bechoisem B'toichoisem. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Hakoil Mishtamer Bechoisem B'toichoisem. If it's a double seal, then everything works. Chutz min hayayin she'ein mishtamer b'choisem b'toichoisem. Even a double seal would not work for wine. Rabbi Yochanan Amar afilu yayin mishtamer b'choisem b'toichoisem. Even wine will be protected with a double seal. And they both hold like the Rabbanan. What do the Rabbanan hold? That it's osher b'shtia. They both hold like the Rabbanan that it's osher b'shtia. Ma'asover keep ligi Rabbanan like Rabbi Eliezer b'choisem efa. One manamar Rabbi Eliezer holds that if there's only one choisem, there the Rabbanan said it's osher b'shtia. Aval b'choisem b'toy choisem, sorry, it will be mutter. I'm sorry, that's Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan said if there's a chosim, even the Rabbanon will hold that it's mutter to drink the wine. And Umar Sover and Rabbi Elazar holds afilu chosim b'soy chosim asr. Even a double chosim by wine will be asr. Now we are talking about this double chosim. What exactly is a double chasima? Hey chidami chosim b'toy chosim. Amar Rava gives three examples. Example number one is Agna de Puma de Chavisa Shrika Bechasima. You have your jug of wine and it's sealed. And then you take a pan and you put it on top of it. And the pan would basically be the same size as the top of this barrel of this jug. And in the pan, there's walls around it. The pan has some depth to it. So the walls there go around the walls of the barrel, and then you seal with some type of putty or lime around that, and that's a chosim b'toy chosim. So what it is agna the pur de chavisa. You have this pan upside down on top of the barrel, shrika smeared with a lime, v'chasima, and you sign it. You sign in the lime so that your signature is permanently there. That's chosim b'toy chosim, and that's what we're talking about. Where we have a machlokes between Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yochanan, if even the Rabbanan will be moided that this is a good seal for wine. Be loy, but if it's not properly sealed, then it wouldn't be a chosim b'toy chosim. Another example of a chosim b'toy chosim is dikula umahadik. You sealed using the regular sealing method of a barrel. Then you took a basket which is like made out of reeds, a little bit stretchable, and you pull it over the top of the barrel. And if it's very tight, it means it's going to be hard to get off the barrel. That will be a deterrent of the goy to break the seal. So the kula mahadik have a chosim b'toy chosim. Loy mahadik, if it's just loose, it's too big for the barrel. Loy have a chosim b'toy chosim. And the third example is noid b'diskaya. A noid is a leather pouch that they would keep wine in, like a flask. A diskaya was also a big leather bag, like a knapsack that shepherds used to wear. So it would be the wine flask in the knapsack. Chasimas pib lamata. The noid that was sealed wasn't face up; it was face down. So it would be a tircha to get out. First, you'd have to open up the diskaya. Then you'd have to take the whole noid out because it's upside down and turn it over. Then open up the chasim of the noid. That extra difficulty makes it a chosim to chosim, where Rabbi Yochanan holds that even the Rabbanan are moida that wine is safe in that scenario. So a nochamal noid b'diskaya chasima pib lamata have a chosim to chosim. A pivla maila, if it was face up, you just open up the diskaya, and right there you could just open up the seal of the noid. Well, have a chosim b'toy chosim. However, there's another way you can have a chosim b'toy chosim without a diskaya, just a noid by itself. First, you tie up the noid. So let's say this is the noid. You put a string around the neck of it, and you tie it up. Then the tied up connection, you fold into the bag underneath it, and you tie it up again. So that's a double seal. So the chichayev pume lagav, if you take the sealed, tied up top of the noid and push it down into the bag, and then you seal around it again, that's a chosim b'toy chosim. So we have three examples of a double chosim, which, according to Rabbi Yochanan, even the Rabbanan will be moida is a good seal. But don't forget, Rabbi Eliezer argues on all this, and he holds even one seal is enough even for one. Tanu Rabbanan. Yain shel Enkushi, wine from the city of Enkushi. Now, Enkushi was a city where they weren't going there; they were kusim there. There's no chashash of stam yain by a kusi, because a kusi doesn't pour wine l'avodah zarah. But the problem with a kusi is he won't stop a goy from touching. He's not worried about a goy touching. So therefore, if the kusi has wine, we're afraid that he lets goyim touch it. Where are they going to be goyim? It's a city that's all kutim. Also, because right near the city of En Kushi was the city of Bir Srika, which was full of goyim. So since they probably come to the city often to buy things from the kutim, there's a concern that the kusim would have let them touch it. The same thing with Birkata, which is also a city of kutim. Also, Mepnei Kvar Parshoi, which had goyim in it. Or Vishal Zagdor, again the city shall kutim, also Mepnei Kfar Shlim. That's what they used to say. Then Chazru Loimar, not all the barrels of these kutim would be possible. Chavius Psuchos Asuri. Any open barrel would be also, we're afraid of going to touch it. But to Sumais, if they were sealed barrels, then Mutares. Frankly, Mikar Maisaber. Originally they held even sealed barrels were also. Besides, if suddenly they saw a reason to be matir the sealed barrels, besides my supper. Zokma Mikar Supper ain't kuti makbid al magavid kechavim. Loishna psuchos v'loishna sesubas. Originally they thought that the kusi will let the guy touch it, say if it's a sealed barrel, say if it's not a sealed barrel, and therefore we have to answer all the barrels. Besides, later on they realized that kilai kapid apesuchos. They only let the goyim touch open barrels. Abbas asumos, but on sealed barrels, mikbid covered the kutim wouldn't let the goyim touch them. Why? Zok Toys was all the way at the bottom of the Amid, one line your Toys. Sesumos Mutaris, the Avapi she'ein loich sesumos. Sheloi hayu psuchos mitchila. How did the barrel get sealed? He filled it up and it wasn't sealed, and then he filled it. So if you hold psuchos are going to be usher, so every sesumos was an open barrel before it was sealed. So how would those be mutter? So Toys is mikamoka and kivin shadaiti l'sosman. If the kuti intends to seal this barrel, why is he doing it? Liskayim, to preserve it, limkar Yisrael, because he intends in the future to sell it to a yid. Since he knows he's going to sell it to a yid, he knows that he has to protect it, because if the word gets out that it wasn't protected, he'll lose his money. He won't be able to sell at a premium to the Jew. So therefore, mintar konater lehu shapir. He'll watch it carefully that a guy shouldn't touch. He's going to be so careful because he doesn't even want to be a chshad that he's going to let a guy touch it, because then he will lose the value. He won't be able to sell it to a yid. If it's open, clearly he's not concerned. But if it's a sealed barrel, you know he's being very careful not to let a guy get near it. Freightumor, is that true? It's a sumais mutaris. You're telling me if it's a sealed barrel, it's going to be mutar by a kuti. I'll prove you wrong. Urumini, we have a kasha. Let's turn on to Lamed Aleph Amid Beis. Hasherleach chavish shel yayin biat kuti. If you are a merchant and you need to sell wine, you're shipping wine to a customer. So you hire a kuti to transport the wine for you. Or vishel tzir vishel muraish biat avitachum. Now you can't send wine to the guy. It's dam yayin. You can send it with a kuti. The concern with the kuti is he might let a guy touch it. Tzir and murais are fish. Tzir is like moisture that comes out of a fish. Murais is some type of tafshul that you make with the innards of the fish. There's a problem. By tzir, there's a problem that the goy says, wow, this is very high quality tzir that you're shipping with me. I have cheap tzir. I'm going to swap it out. I'll give you my cheap tzir and I'll take your good tzir. In the meantime, the cheap tzir that the goy has might be from a dak tomei, and there'll be a problem. So there's a problem that the goy will swap it out. Murais is something that's much more valuable than even wine. So we're afraid the goy will drain out some of the murais from your barrel to steal. It's going to be, the level's going to lower. No, I'll throw in wine. Wine was cheaper than murais. By tzir, we weren't worried because tzir is more expensive, because tzir is cheaper than wine. So no one's going to fill up a tzir barrel with wine. But murais is way more valuable than wine, so you might take out some murais and put wine in its place, and then you'll have a problem with stam yain. So if you do that, you have to seal it. If upon getting to the destination, the shipper can tell that his chasima remained intact, ustama in his the closure, mutter, then it will be mutter. But imlav, if the shipper doesn't recognize that this was properly sealed and it wasn't tampered with, also it will be also. So we have a stira. Because we said a moment ago, a sealed barrel, you could send with a kuti. You could trust a kuti. And here it says, dafke, if you could recognize that the chasima is good. Amar b'zeir loy kasha, it's not shver. Can be or can be there. In the city where there's Jews everywhere looking, there you can be 100% sure he won't let a yid touch it. But b'derech, when he's traveling, in a rest area, he can let a guy touch it. And that's why there'll be a problem. You have to recognize the chasima. Mask of Rabbi Yirmiyah, what type of kash is that? What type of teretz is that? Midi hanach deir le'b'derech also? When he gets to the destination, even though he's in the city, how could you trust that it wasn't tampered with? If he traveled to get the barrel to that place, weiter, it's already susceptible to tampering. So that doesn't make sense. You know when we can be sure that it wasn't tampered with? That's when it's the main time when these things are being sold. So there's a lot of traffic everywhere. It's like a rest area on the 17 during the summer. It's packed with heat, and every rest area is a besmerdrish. So therefore, no matter where he goes, even when he's traveling, there's Jews watching, so he'll be very careful not to let a goy get near this barrel. Keeping the kula al ma'achvi, since the Jews are traveling everywhere, there's no place where he's not going to encounter a Jew. Mirsus, the kuti is very afraid to let a goy get near it, and therefore, even if you don't recognize the seal, Omar hashta ichazili, if anyone catches me letting a goy get near the barrel, masaduli, I'll lose my hechsher and I won't be able to sell my wine to the Kavalti. Now, very important. Tosfos has some very important points. It's mashma here that wine you need to have not stama chasima. You have to be able to check to make sure that the chasima wasn't tampered with. By a kuti, there's different scenarios if it's traveling in a busy time. But a goy mamish, if you sell wine with a goy and the wine is sealed, you have to be able to recognize the chasima. So Tosfos brings out in his first shot that it seems like if you're going to ship wine to another destination, he can't use the wine who you're sending it to unless you yourself get to the destination and examine the seal. Because otherwise, how do you know it wasn't tampered with? So what Tosfos suggests as an eitzah, what they used to do is, the seal was done in a specific way, and he would sign on the seal his signature. So Zog Tosfos, you know what you're going to have to do? You could send the barrel with the seal with the goy to your receiver, to the customer who's getting it, and under a separate cover, you have to send a copy of your chasima to the receiver so that he'll be able to compare the two. And you have to tell the goy when you're shipping with him, I want you to know I'm sending the receiver a sample of my signature. So he's going to be able to check and see if you tampered with it. And only then will it be allowed. Rabbeinu Tam wanted a taina that maybe you could be mekel even if you're sending it with a goy without checking it at all. So Rabbeinu Tam ended up saying that he was mekel, but because at the end of the day, the guy is afraid to tamper with it, and he says, because Rabbi Eliezer is not choshit for messing around, and therefore Tosfos says, "Ubedi eved yesh lismach al psak Rabbeinu Tam." B'di eved you can be soymech on Rabbeinu Tam that even if they didn't send a copy of the chasima, it will be okay. Then Tosfos gets into a very interesting discussion as to exactly how do you seal a barrel. So Tosfos brings two shitas, fascinating how they used to wrap a barrel. So what is a barrel? It's a whole bunch of wooden slats and there's metal rings around it. So Tosfos says you'd have to seal the top with the opening on the top with some type of cotton and then smear it over with pech. And then on top of that whole thing, to make sure no one tampers, you have to take a big piece of leather, wrap it around the top of the barrel, and screw it to the wall of the barrel all the way around, and then seal it around there with a signature so no one could open. But Tosfos says, what about the bottom of the barrel? What if someone gets into the bottom of the barrel? So he says you're going to have a metal ring right at the bottom of the barrel as well, and it has to be properly screwed in, so it would be difficult to tamper with. And if there's any spigot that's installed in the barrel, that would also be covered over with leather and sealed all around. So any place to access would be a problem. But Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Yehuda said we still have a problem. Because nowadays that the barrels, like in Tosfos days, the barrels are made of slats of wood. What stops the guy from sliding a knife in between the two slats of the barrel and letting some wine out? And that would be a problem. So he said you'd have to wrap the whole barrel in a big leather pouch and seal it in order to be comfortable that it's fully sealed. And all the way at the end, Tosfos says, "V'amachmer tovei lo bracha." Someone who's very machmer to seal the whole barrel in one big container with the seal, tovei lo bracha, because he's super careful. However, he brings down from Rav Moshe Mikusi, who's the famous Count of Kusi, that since there are makilim in this shaila and there are machmirin, we can't really be machmer because it's too difficult to aser wine if you follow the shita that's reliable like Rebbeinu Tams. So I thought that was an interesting picture, snapshot of history of how they used to deal with shipping barrels to avoid the problem of stam yain. Zog the heilige Gemara weiter. Itmar, mipnei ma asru shecher shleitim. You're not allowed to drink the beer of a guy. Why did they ask for the beer of a guy? There's two shitas. Rami bar Chama Omer B'Yitzchak Mishum Chasnus. If you drink goyish beer, you'll come to socialize and party with goyim, and chas v'sholom it'll lead to intermingling and intermarriage. Rav Nachman Omer, it's not because of that. It's mishum giluye. We're afraid a goy is not makbid on gilui. He'll let a snake get to it. A yid is makbid not to leave it uncovered, and there's a sakana factor involved. Frankly, I don't understand what the sakana factor is. A gilui the mind. You let him gilui in the zaisa. The big vat that you ferment the beer in, is that where you're worried that it will be left open, that a snake can get to it? Well, guess what? Even Jewish people, when they make beer, they have it uncovered. So why is there no problem with Gilui? So it's Rashi, because we know snakes don't like beer. So that's why there's no concern. So why would it be a concern by the guy? Well, the Chavisa, maybe after it's finished in the barrel. Even in the barrel, we don't cover it. For the same reason, snakes don't drink beer. When they make the beer, they first want to have very clear water. So they shep water from the bar, and then they let it sit for a couple of days till all the particles settle down, and then they take the top layer of water, which is clear, crystal clear. But while the water is sitting there, we would cover it, the goyim don't cover it. That's why you cannot buy beer from a goy. Frankly, if that's the case, Elmayata Yoshan Tishri, beer that's already fermented and aged should be mutter. Because you don't need to worry that a snake put venom into the water before they even made the beer. You know why? Because if there was a snake venom in the water, it would have never been able to ferment. The Omarab, Yoshan mutter. Old wine is mutter even though there is venom mixed into it. Because ein manicha liyashin. Venom stopped the chemical process of fermentation and it wouldn't have fermented. So the fact the beer became beer is proof that no snake put anything into it. Hichmitz mutter, if it became vinegar, it's the same thing. Ein manichel hachmitz. So the problem is, once again, if the problem why you can't drink beer from a goy is because of gilui, where's their problem? There shouldn't be a problem by old beer. I understand by fresh beer, but not by old beer. So Gemara Yosh Gzera Yosh Natu Chadosh. We don't let you drink any beer because if we let you drink any beer from a goy, you might drink fresh beer before it's fermented, and that's when there's a danger of the venom of the snake. Now Rav Papa, he didn't held there was a problem of gilui. He held there was only a problem of chasnas. And therefore, mafkin leila baba de chanusa b'shasi. When he would go to a goyish store to buy beer, he wouldn't drink in the store. He wouldn't go into the bar and drink it. He would tell them, bring me the beer outside. I'll drink it outside. So since I'm not drinking it in the bar, I'm drinking it outside. That was good enough that he felt there won't be a danger of intermingling. But Rabbi Choy was even more makbid. He would only drink it in his house. He'd go to the bar, buy beer, and then go drink it at home. Both of them hold any prohibition of drinking beer of a goy is only because of a chashash of intermingling, and therefore it can lead to intermarriage. Rabbi Chai said, not only am I not going to sit with them and party in their bar, I'm not even going to go outside, I'm going to be in my house. Tosha says, the pashtus is, you're not allowed to drink beer in the bar, because you're mingling with people. You're drinking at home. He talks about even if you're in a hotel, could you order beer? A. Or B is, what if there's beer in the if there's beer in the bar fridge? Are you allowed to use that beer? Because you're buying a guy, you're taking his beer. So Zok Tosha is about you're renting a room, that's like your own house. But in a bar, pashtus, you're not allowed to drink beer in the bar. Zok Gemara Vayter. Rav Shmuel Bar Bisna Ikloi L'Margava. He came to the city of Margava. And Margava was a city where there were Yidden who lived there, but the Yidden were Poish Yisrael, and they were not makbid on drinking the beer of a guy or the wine of a guy. Aisha Lechamer, they brought him wine, V'lo Yashti, he wouldn't drink it. Aisha Leshicha, they brought him beer, V'lo Yashti, he wouldn't drink it. So Bishlam Lechamer, I understand why. Mishum Shimtza, we're afraid that they poured it Avoda Zara. There's a chash of Yain Nesa. But Shircha, there's no chash of Yain Nesa. Why wouldn't they drink their beer? Mishamai, so Mishum Shimsha the Shimsha. He holds, you know why you can't drink beer? Or to wine. So it's not because of chasnus. It's not because of gilui. It's because or to wine where there's a problem of avodah zarah. Amarav, Hashircha Darmo Shari. Goy Shabir is mutter. He held there was no problem. There was no problem of chasnus. There was no problem of gilui, and there was no gzera. He held you're allowed to drink it. But v'chia bri loy nishtimne. My son Chia can't drink. Everybody can drink except for my son. Frank Marmanovsha. Ishari, if it's mutter luchula amashari, it should be mutter to Chia as well. Iaser luchula amaser. And if it's aser, then if it's aser to Chia, it should be aser to everybody. Ella Rav Savar Mishum Geluya. Rav held the reason why it's aser to drink beer is because there's a fear that a snake's venom is in it. But the harsh, bitter hops that are put into the water will also it makes the venom impotent. It neutralizes the venom. So therefore, you're allowed to drink from a goy, and you don't have to be worried about the venom, because even if there was venom in the water, once they put the hops into it to ferment, that will sort of weaken. It'll weaken the poison. But udaloki, but for someone who's not well, malkilet fei, it will really cause him harm, even the weakened poison. And therefore, v'chia bari, Chia, my dear son, hoyel b'loki, since he's not a well person, loy nishtim, he can't drink it. Amar Shmuel said, Kol hashrotzim yesh lahem eretz. All shrotzim have poison, but shal nochash, the poison of a snake, is much more potent. Maybe it can kill. But shal shrotzim maybe it's not so potent. Amar le Shmuel Chia by Rav. Shmuel told Chia, the son of Rav, Bar Aryeh, the son of a lion. Your father Rav was a lion. Come here. I'm going to tell you a beautiful word that I heard from your father. This is what your father said. You see goyim that don't look well. They have swollen limbs. They're obviously suffering from some ailment. I'm going to tell you what that ailment is. They drank water that was left uncovered that there's venom in it. So how come they didn't die? You know why they didn't die? I do the achli shkatim uramosim. Since they eat all these insects, it causes in their stomach some type of cocktail. Chovel gufayu, their body now, because of the shrotzim that they ate, is able to neutralize and weaken the venom, so that although they're not healed completely, but it won't kill them, you just see their evarim swell. Rabbi Yosef said, and let's turn on to Daf Lamed Beis Amud Aleph. High challah de shikra darmo. Beer vinegar that belongs to the goy made. Also, it would be also to drink it. You know why? The ma'arvi bei durdaya diyayin. You know what these goyim do? It's similar to in a bar. They water down the booze. What they did was they put shmorim of wine into the beer vinegar to make it look fuller. But that's going to be the problem of yayin nesa. The ma'arvi bei durdaya diyayin nesa. Amar Abashi, but umay oiter shari. If they're putting into a barrel that they're going to leave in the warehouse to ferment and to age, that you could buy from them. You know why? Because keeping them Arba by Misra, sorry. If they put shmarim of wine into that barrel, it's going to ruin it. It's going to ruin the chaim. It's going to make it go bad. To sell right away, they'll mix in the shmarim. But if it's going to go to long-term storage, they wouldn't dare put in any shmarim because it'll destroy their beer vinegar. So therefore, you can buy from them. Okay, Baruch Hashem, we were zoicha to finish Daf Lamed Aleph. Tomorrow we're going to learn Daf Hearts, Lave. Tomorrow we're going to learn Daf Lamed Beis, Bez Hashem. Everybody should have a good bench to vote.
Shkoyach Yosy.
Shkoyach.
What station?